updates, aka part 2 of my not kindergarten teacher, my art teacher. Okay, so there's one thing in the other video I kind of forgot to mention, and it's about Lydia again. So basically she showed her art to, let's call her Mrs. Staples, because that kind of sounds like her name, but not really. But whatever, I'm sure if Mrs. Staples saw this and her real name was actually in it, she'd probably murder me, so. Yeah, so she showed it to her, and then Mrs. Staples was like, where's all the fun stuff hanging from the ceiling? And then Lydia's not like, and Lydia's like, oh, what fun stuff hanging from the ceiling? So then she's like, but you could have all this like fun stuff hanging from the ceiling. And then Lydia's like, but I don't want to. So she's like, fine, I guess you'll get an F then. Like I said in the other episode, I want to hit her in the head with my water bottle. It's like she's acknowledging I have a water bottle, and she desperately wants to get hit in the head with it, because that's what she's acting like right now. So, yeah. And today, we were all talking a little bit too much. But instead of just telling us to quiet down, she's like, silent art. Silent art. Then, Mrs. Marcoua. We'll just call her Mrs. Marcoua, because that also kind of sounds like her name. But I'm sure if Mrs. Marcoua saw this and her real name was in it, she'd also probably kill me. How fun. So she's like the principal of the not the 6th grade, not just the 6th grade, the whole middle school. So my school's like a private school, I guess. It's like a Christian school, so it's kind of a private school. So it has every grade from pre-K to 12th grade, and each individual group has its own, like, teacher, principal, I forgot the word for some reason. So, like, elementary has Mrs. Fish, I guess. That's kind of similar to her name as well, because I'm sure if any one of my teachers saw this and the real name was actually in it, they'd probably murder me, so. Yeah, Mrs. Fish is, and I hated her as well. I'll tell you the story in another video, but yeah. Then we have Mrs. Marcoua, and then the high school has Dr. Dr. Earyorf, which is not his real name, but it rhymes. It rhymes with his name. Ooh, these kind of look like watermelons, so. Anyway. Yeah, so we had Mrs. Marcoua, and she like came in, and when we had a couple minutes of art left, she was like, you guys are so disrespectful to Mrs. Staples. When I heard her say silent art, it made me so upset to see how like disrespectful you are. When you need to like, I talked to the other teachers, and like they all said that when you come into art, you like are so crazy, but you don't come into my class that way. You don't come into Mrs. Yapes's class that way. You don't come into Mrs. Yalter's class that way. Like, girl, the reason we come in so crazy is because it's the last class of the day. Like, art is the last class of the day, and we're so excited to go home. And one of my friends, or frenemies, actually said that. And he was like, yeah, but we were just excited because it's the last class of the day. And then Mrs. Marcoua was like, oh, so you just think you can act like that because it's the last class of the day? And then she, like, literally wasted our time. Like, so much. Oh, my God. And she's just so annoying. Like, also, yeah, it's just annoying. Like, Mrs. Marcoua, a lot of my teachers are actually kind of annoying, to be honest with you. Some are decent, but they're still got like that teeny tiny spark of annoyance of a teacher would have. Like, stop. Can you just stop being annoying for like 2 seconds and like actually be understanding? Like Mrs. Yalter or whatever I said, she's like the science teacher. And one time, I don't really like this girl, but I guess she's okay-ish. Like, she's gotten better over, like, the other years I've been here. But, like, So basically, she does a lot of things. She does choir like me. She does cheer, and I think she does basketball. Yeah. So she has a lot of stuff to do. She does 2 sports, and she does a curricular activity every Tuesday and Thursday, because Tuesdays and Thursdays is when we have choir instead of study hall time. Mrs. Yalter said, so she didn't really have a lot of time to study because she had to do a lot of games. Like, she had a lot of cheers and basketball practices to do over the weekend. And then Mrs. Yalter was like, sports is not an excuse to not have time to study. Like, no, she was literally like, I tried to study, but I had a lot of sports and stuff during the weekend. Then Mrs. Yalter was like, that is not an that's not an excuse to not have time to study. Like, no. Like, yeah, teachers are just annoying. They're just really annoying. We are learning about space, though, so, and science. That's fun. What the heck? So, yeah. That's basically part 2. I'm just trying to think of other things she said. Of what Mrs. Marquand said to us about being a disrespectful class. Oh my gosh, why do I keep falling down? So, I guess she was just like not that nice explaining to us why we were so bad. Like, she was like, you don't go into the other classes that way. I don't. So, yeah, that's really annoying of all of them. Yeah, she literally gave us a silent art because we were socializing. Like, bro, teachers are always like, I don't understand why you guys are, like, not socializing with each other because, like, you guys can't just be little introverts your whole life. Yet, the second we start socializing, boom, we are criminals. Like, no. If you want us to socialize, how about you do this thing called letting us socialize when we have free time? Like, for some reason, whenever we have free time, they're like, do your homework? No talking. Like, no. The whole point of homework is to do it at home. I mean, I do it at school, but I just want to prove their point, so yeah, whatever. That is the end of part 2, and I'll give you updates tomorrow. Also, next week we have a sub, but if the sub's annoying, I'll tell you about it, I guess. Bye-bye.